welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into a pretty profound idea
Mm.
that believing or not is a choice with consequences.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How the world often seems to, split into these different groups that are often at odds.
Uh-huh.
That we want to explore what that really means for individuals.
Absolutely. We've got some compelling source material here, excerpts that really break down how groups build cohesion, how they keep loyalty.
Okay.
But then, interestingly, the sources shift perspective. They talk about a unique emerging spiritual conflict.
Spiritual. Okay.
Yeah. So our mission, if you like, is to unpack those group loyalty strategies first, and then explore this different view of a spiritual battle unfolding and what it means for all of us personally.
Sounds intriguing. You're definitely heading into some territory that might, challenge how you usually think about things. We'll be connecting some ancient stories to very current ideas.
Right?
And tackling this really critical question about what we might be emitting without even realizing it.
Good.
Okay, so let's unpack this first part. When you have these groups at odds, it seems pretty standard, almost natural for leaders to kind of withdraw, huddle up, plan defenses, maybe attacks.
Yeah, that's a common pattern.
Yeah.
But just as important, maybe more important, is how they keep their own people in line.
Ah, right. Stop them leaving the fold.
Precisely. Developing tactics to maintain commitment, maintain allegiance. That's key.
So what are the common tools for that? How do they achieve it?
Well, the sources suggest it often boils down to a few core methods, Things like force, or maybe the threat of force. Fear is a big one.
Fear, yeah.
And propaganda, of course. Shaping the narrative.
Okay. And the source material gets specific about these tactics.
It does. First, there's that classic move. Paint the other group as, dangerous.
Okay.
Or maybe delusional, or sometimes even less than human. It's about stripping away their legitimacy.
Dehumanization. Got it. What else?
Then there's a more subtle one, appointing experts, people whose status, whose position depends entirely on them towing the party line.
Ah, so their explanations have to fit the leadership's doctrine.
Exactly. And the effect is it sows doubt in anyone thinking of questioning things, makes them feel like, oh, I must be the one who's wrong.
Clever.
Yeah.
And often effective, I imagine.
Fair. Then there's the threat of ostracization. If you're stubborn, if you don't conform,
You're out.
you're out. Cut off from whatever protections or benefits the group offers. That social pressure is powerful.
And I suppose in extreme cases.
In extreme cases, yes, the sources mention actual physical force, violence against dissenters who just won't back down.
Wow. So these methods, they're all aimed at controlling what people believe, keeping them loyal.
Fundamentally, yes. It's fascinating, really, how these strategies pop up again and again, no matter the group or the context. It's like a playbook for managing belief and behavior.
Okay, so we've looked at how groups operate in the, let's say, the physical or social world. But you mentioned source takes a turn towards something spiritual.
It does, and here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The source material introduces this entirely different kind of conflict.
Different how?
It's described as a conflict between those who believe in man as spirit and those who don't.
Man as spirit. Okay, what does that actually mean in this context?
Well, that's the crucial part. The source points out that most people today, they don't actually know what it means to be spirit in the way the source defines it.
So they might be in the anti-spirit camp without even realizing it.
Exactly. Even if they think of themselves as spiritual or are told they are, they might not meet this specific definition. It's a pretty fine distinction.
So what does it mean then, according to this source, to be spiritual in this sense?
It's not just about holding certain beliefs. It suggests it comes with certain expectations.
Like what?
Expectations of a particular level of consciousness, for one, and awareness of the kinds of activities that are expected of a spirit.
Activities, like actions.
It seems less about specific outward actions and more about an inner state, an inner orientation. And the source definitely mentions responsibilities that come with being a spirit.
Can you give an example of those necessary types of activity? Is it like meditation or?
That's a fair question. It seems to be more about the quality of engagement with life. Like, just as you'd expect a painter to paint, a spirit is expected to engage with existence in a certain conscious, perhaps ethically driven way. It's about upholding certain principles through your very way of being, not just a belief, but how you operate.
Okay, I think I'm getting a sense of it. It's a state of being with inherent responsibilities,
Right. And this leads to another really important point the source makes about individual responsibility.
even with all the group pressures we just talked about.
Yes, this raises a key question. Despite all those external influences, maybe even controls, the source is clear. The individual is ultimately responsible
Responsible for what?
for their own negligence, their own actions.
Oh.
Particularly, it says, in the sight of the Lord.
The Lord.
And it adds that it's the Lord's will that humanity must learn to live as true spirit. So there's this inherent accountability, it goes beyond just group loyalty. It's about fulfilling a kind of personal spiritual destiny.
That's a heavy concept. Individual responsibility on a cosmic scale almost.
It is. It shifts the focus inward quite dramatically.
Now, shifting focus slightly again,
Yeah.
you mentioned spiritual forces getting involved in these conflicts.
Yes, the source is quite explicit about that, especially regarding the spiritual conflict. It suggests these deeper conflicts always involve non-physical forces.
Like in old stories.
Kind of. It draws parallels to well-known narratives to illustrate the point. But the core idea is that when spiritual conflicts arise, spiritual forces are invariably part of the picture.
Okay. And how do these forces interact with people?
Well, here's a fascinating detail. According to the source, these forces can only recognize people who genuinely belong to the true spiritual camp
Recognize them.
through a kind of mark they bear. Not a physical mark, obviously, but something inherent in their being, their spiritual essence, maybe?
Like an identifier?
Sort of, yeah. An intrinsic quality that these forces perceive.
And the source gives examples of this mark.
It does. It points to, for instance, the Passover story in Exodus.
With the blood on the doorposts.
Exactly. The source interprets that blood as symbolizing the true spiritual essence, the mark, emanating from the Israelites that the destroying force recognized and passed over.
Interesting interpretation. Any others?
It also mentions the book of Revelation, which talks about marks on the forehead identifying those aligned with darkness in that context. So the idea of spiritual identification marks seems present in different traditions.
Okay. But how does that apply to us now?
Well, this leads to probably the most striking insight from the source material. It states that, unknown to many,
Yes.
we all bear marks. Or maybe better put, we all have emissions. Things we unconsciously send out every second of every day.
Emissions. Like
Yeah.
an aura. Or a vibe.
Kind of. Maybe think of it like a vibrational signature, a spiritual fingerprint that reflects our inner state, our true alignment. It's radiating from us constantly, whether we know it or not.
Wow. Unconscious emissions that act as a mark.
That's the idea. It's not something you put on or take off. It's part of who you are, moment to moment.
That idea of unconscious emissions.
Yeah.
It's really something. Does the source say, if we can, change them? Become aware of them?
It strongly implies we can influence them, that the whole point of striving to live as a true spirit is about transforming that inner state.
So the inner work changes the outer emission.
Precisely. It's about shifting your fundamental alignment, which then changes the mark or signature you radiate. And that's what these spiritual forces supposedly recognize. It makes personal responsibility not just about actions, but about the very essence of your being.
Which brings us back to that emerging spiritual battle.
Right. And so the source poses this really critical question directly to you, the listener. It asks, how will your mark or emissions align during the onslaught of the spiritual forces that will inevitably be involved in the emerging spiritual battle?
That is quite the question to ponder.
It certainly is.
We've covered a lot of ground today. From, the ways groups keep people loyal.
Force, fear, propaganda, experts.
Right, to this really distinct idea of a spiritual conflict between man as spirit and, not.
And the individual responsibility that comes with that.
And finally, this concept of unseen marks, these constant emissions we're all sending out that apparently identify us to spiritual forces.
It definitely prompts some deep reflection.
It really makes you think about what you believe, sure, but maybe more fundamentally, what you are radiating into the world.
It does. And maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. If these unconscious emissions truly reflect our core being,
Yeah.
how might they be playing out in these larger unseen dynamics? And what does that imply about where we need to align ourselves personally as things continue to unfold?
Definitely something to mull over. It really asks us to look inward, doesn't it?
It does indeed.
Well, that was a fascinating deep dive. Thank you for joining us today. We really hope you continue to explore these connections and what they might mean for you.